This is Anchor Your Retirement with Barb Gulin from Safe Harbor Financial Planning Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Barb Gulin provides her clients and prospects the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful strategies to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now here is Anchor Your Retirement with Barb Gulin.
Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Gulin, hanging out with my favorite sidekick, Tony Shore. Hello, Tony.
Hello. Oh, that'd mean more if you had more sidekicks, but I do appreciate that.
It's like saying my favorite oldest daughter or my favorite youngest daughter.
Right.
Is
right.
that what that means?
I tell my son, I go, "You're my number one son. You'll always be my number one son."
Because he's your only son.
Yeah, because he's the only one. Yeah, but it's not just because of that. He's great.
I know.
He's great. Yeah,
but I
appreciate
the same way
it.
about having you as a sidekick.
Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Well, Barb, how have you been?
You know, for those of you watching on video, I did not have a facelift. We just went and had professional headshots done today. And
you look great today.
Thank you. We all got our makeup done professionally.
Nice.
So I don't know how long it will take to take it off tonight. I know I sat in the chair and I was like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? Yeah. But anyway, it was a lot of fun, more surprises to come and things that are coming up that I can't talk about quite publicly yet. But
you've got a lot of exciting news coming, and I can't wait until you can talk about it on the show. It'll be great.
But the color of my shirt, which is purple, is a little bit of a hint.
There you go.
So anyway, we had a fun-filled morning with that. Just finished a review with some of the greatest clients that we have. I love all of my clients, but these guys were friends before they were clients. And so, I blocked out a little extra time and it still wasn't enough to spend with them.
Oh.
Clients really do become family around here. They really do. And then we're going to kick off the weekend as soon as we're done with the podcast here.
Yes, we are. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I know you're keeping busy, and I know you love meeting with clients, and you love meeting with people who watch or listen to the show each week.
I do.
I encourage all of our listeners, if they have questions, to let you know, reach out to your office. You have a great staff there, and you love hearing from people. And if people have a topic they want us to talk about on the show, we'll look at those too. I know you
send
love
us a message. Let us know.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I know that we talk a lot about, or you've talked about in a few shows, federal benefits, right? Federal employee, what is it? The FERS?
Yep. Right now it's, Federal Employee Retirement System, FERS.
Yeah.
The old guard was CSRS, Civil Service Retirement System. There aren't too many of those left because that went away in the 1980s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So pretty much the majority of the people that are around now are under that Federal Employee Retirement System.
Okay.
And unlike the old retirement system, these guys pay into Social Security. In the old retirement system, depending on your years of service and your age and a few other things, you could collect up to 80% of your adjusted basic pay in retirement.
Wow.
But you didn't pay into Social Security all that time. So you had to pay out of pocket for Medicare. And there were some other nuances to that it sounds great. And it is a very valuable pension. Don't get me wrong.
Sure. The pension itself is valuable, but paying for your own health care.
Right. It just created a whole lot of other situations.
Sure.
So when you are in the FERS retirement system, which is how we're going to refer to it for the rest of this podcast, because I'm not going to spit that out every time. You are also paying into Social Security. So even though you are not getting the same equivalent as you were in CSRS, you end up still with a really sweet deal. and you don't have to pay out of pocket for Medicare. Okay. For those of you that are wondering how to calculate your FERS pension, just give you a quick calculation. This is just an estimate. Gives you a ballpark figure, but isn't going to give you that 100% ratcheted down accuracy. If you take your high 3, which is your 36 consecutive months of highest compensation, doesn't have to be the last 3, although it might be. But if you were in a place that had a higher locality pay like Houston or San Francisco, and then went to a smaller market to finish out your career, your high 3 might have been somewhere in the middle. Okay. Or if you were in a management position and stepped down because of the stress level, there's a myriad of reasons why your high 3 isn't necessarily your last 3.
Sure.
But you're going to take those 36 consecutive months of highest pay, and you're going to figure out what that is and divide it by 3. That gives you your annual pay for the high 3.
Okay.
And then you're going to look at your years of service. And for every year of service, you're going to give yourself a percent. So if you've got 30 years of service, 30%. 30% of your high 3 is roughly what your pension is going to be, unless we have some other caveats that can increase that we're going to talk about that here in the rest of this podcast.
So we're talking today. So what you're saying is we're going to talk about ways to possibly maximize your pension.
Right.
To get the most
bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome. Who wouldn't want to do that?
My point exactly. Now, in the FERS system, to retire with an unreduced pension where they aren't taking away 5% per year for every year that you don't meet this qualification, whatever these benchmarks are, you need to work for 30 years and minimum retirement age, which for most people is somewhere around 57, between 57 and 58.
Yep.
You have to work for 20 years and be 60 years old when you retire. Or you have to be 62 and have 5 years of credited service. Okay. For those of you that have questions about this, I'm going to upload some information. We'll put in the show notes the handbook that I give to people when I do my federal webinars and train not only on your pension, but on all of your benefits in general. That'll give you the breakdown of what your minimum retirement age is. That's calculated based on the year you were born, just like Social Security. Can't do anything about that, as well as those breakdowns. So we already know that you have to work that number of years with that correlating age to get an unreduced pension. That's our baseline. Okay. But the government also creates situations where you can increase that pension. For example, if you have at least 20 years of service and you work past your 62nd birthday, instead of that calculation being 1% per year, it's 1.1% for every year of credited service. So that's a permanent 10% raise.
Yeah, it adds up. It does. You're like, whoa, 1.1.
Really
What's the difference? It really adds up.
It really adds up. For those of you that served in the military but did not serve that full 20 years where you're collecting a military pension, you can buy back your service time and add that to your credited service time and get credit for that as your pension.
Yeah.
So if you work for 20 years, you're 62, and you buy back 5 years of military time, you're going to get 1.1% times 25, which
I had
is
a brother-in-law that did that.
Yep.
And he served for a few years in the Air Force, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he went to work for the State Department eventually. And so
we've talked about him before.
Yes, we have. Yeah. Yeah, we have. Yeah. He probably doesn't want us talking about him, but we have. He retired at 57 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all of those things can help increase your pension. Another thing that I see a lot of people do is they take terminal sick leave, where they use up all of their sick leave before they retire.
Right.
Okay. What a lot of people don't understand, even though I say it every webinar, is that unused sick leave, when you retire, gets converted and is credited toward your service time.
Wow. That's great.
Okay. Some agencies allow you to cash out some of that sick leave. I know certain FAA unions, you can cash out part of your sick leave. You don't have to use it all to be credited service time. But that's very, very few unions that let that happen. Run of the mill, you are able to take that sick leave, bank it, and then use it as credited service time. Roughly 2,000 hours is going to give you an additional year of credited service time.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you cannot use that credited service time to reach that benchmark. You can't have worked 29 years and have a year worth of sick leave and be at minimum retirement age.
Oh, you can't.
You can't. You have to actually have that time worked. Something to remember when you're looking at when to retire. But all of those things together can work to your advantage. I met an administrative judge once who had over 4,000 hours of sick leave.
Wow.
He said he had never taken a sick day the entire time he had worked.
Yeah. All those years.
Yep. So he was either incredibly healthy or got his coworkers sick. I don't know.
Yeah, probably a little of both.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But then again, when you're the judge, you can probably shut the door and tell people you don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's very, there are definitely opportunities for you to increase your pension without even having to move. Now, I have also known federal employees that once the kids were out of the nest and perhaps they were single, perhaps they were empty nesters, in a high demand profession like nursing, would transfer from where they were and go work in one of those higher locality areas for the 3 years to get that high 3.
Yep.
And know that their pension was calculated on that and give themselves a raise with their pension that way.
Yeah.
For those of you that have flexibility, you don't even necessarily have to sell your house. I mean, with today's Airbnb, and, I'm not recommending this to anybody, you don't have to sell your house. You could rent it out to somebody for a couple of years and go rent a modest apartment somewhere if that's what you wanted to do to increase that locality pay and to, just another way that you can have a higher pension at the end of the day.
Yeah. The location issue or the locality pay you're talking about, again, I have heard about that through my brother-in-law, and he did that. And his situation is amazing because the position he was in, what they do is he was able to retire officially at 57 or 58, I think he did. And at 58, then he retired. He gets the pension. He's used the tools and things you've been talking about so far, maximized that pension, then went back 2 weeks later, started at that same job as a consultant, making more than he was as a government employee. So now he's collecting the pension and getting paid to be a consultant. So I know that's in some positions you can do that. Obviously, everything's different. People say, "Well, I work for government, I can't do that." So, but it depends. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing he didn't do was work until 62 to get that 10%.
No, he did
not.
But
going back as a contractor and making more money, he's more than making up for that.
Yeah. And there are a few things that about that I'm sure he did not do. And, it sounds like he did a few of them, but not all of them. Right.
Yeah. Well, and, with the way his circumstances panned out, it might have been an offer that was just too good to leave on the table.
Yeah, he's a
And
computer networking guy. So they always bring the people before him. He saw them do that. And then, he talked to his bosses and they said, yeah, we can bring you back on as a contractor. And so that's what he
yep,
did. Yeah.
yep, it all worked out great.
Yeah.
And, and I have a client who did that same thing, hit MRA, minimum retirement age, in 30 years, and went back the next week doing just what he liked about his old job as a contractor, and didn't have to follow up with all of the paperwork and all of the other frustrating things.
Right.
So, even though he's still working and, he's got 2 kids in college, so
It's
it
helpful.
made the
Yeah.
cash flow a whole lot better.
Yeah.
It all depends on how you, what you want life to look like, what that quality of life is, and what that successful retirement looks like for you. Because for every person, it's different.
Right. I know it's hard for you, Barb, to talk on the show about blanket ways
Mhm.
to do things, because what happens is, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, when somebody comes in, they're a government employee, they talk to you about how many years they've worked, where
Mhm.
they're at. You start asking them questions because you know the right questions to ask. And then what they're telling you, have you done this? When do you want to retire? And so then you say, oh, well, if you're in this situation, I know about this, this, and this, and this. And so
Right.
it really does. It depends on your personal situation, where you're at. And like you said, there are a lot of different factors. I wouldn't want to just go with it and just do, okay, I think I want to do this, without
No.
talking to somebody like yourself.
Right. And let's not forget to mention the fact that I'm a fiduciary, which
Yes.
means that the advice I give is held to a slightly higher level of accountability than
Right.
some
You're held
other
accountable
financial
by the
professionals.
state. You're held accountable by the state. You're audited
Mm.
to make sure that you're doing the advice you give and what you do for your clients are in their best interest, not yours. So you
Right.
can't tell somebody to do something that's going to make you money unless it truly is, out of all the choices they have to accomplish their goals, it's what they're best for them. Right.
Right. But that's also why just about every time you and I talk and do one of these podcasts, I'm telling you, don't just take my advice and run with it. Talk to a fiduciary. If you have an advisor, great. If they're a fiduciary, even better. If not, we're here to help you with that.
Yeah.
But don't just take my advice and run with it,
Yeah.
because,
Go sit down with the advice. You're talking about the advice you give on the
right,
show.
right.
Yeah, because it
You
can
know,
be individualized, and really what you need to do to truly give them the best advice for them is to find out what their personal situation is. And that's why I know you offer complimentary consultations, and they need to they should not do anything with their finances or retirement planning regardless without working with a financial professional who's a fiduciary. Yeah.
Right. They need to talk to somebody first. And in
Yeah.
fact, I'm pretty sure these podcasts go through compliance, and they probably tell you
Yep.
to cut stuff out when I say
Yep.
something that's off the mark or that isn't 100% right.
Right.
And, that's part
You
of
haven't done that in a
protecting the
long time, by the way. You haven't done that
thanks.
in a long time.
Thanks. I try not to,
Right. Well, yeah.
I
You've
would,
been doing it a while. I think you know what
and,
you're doing.
and I would rather check than apologize. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Well, you're held accountable. So,
Yeah,
and
that saying, it's
that's
easier to
good.
ask for forgiveness than permission. That's not really how I roll.
Well, no, yeah, yeah. You hope nobody in the financial industry, especially, should roll with that if they're trying to help people with their money. But these things happen. So that's why it's so important to work with a
Mhm.
trusted financial professional like yourself. And I just want to encourage our listeners to give you a call. How can they get a hold of you?
They can reach us at area code 913-553-6222, or go to anchoryourretirement.com and contact us through there. And, that being careful about our advice is why, for the most part, you're not going to get a blanket recommendation from us the first time you come in and meet with us. We
Sure.
have to collect information about you and find out what your dreams and goals are, figure out where your assets are, and then we're going to do an analysis before we push you to make a decision in any direction.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and that's great. It's a great show today. And I know there are a lot of ways that you've helped people maximize their federal pensions and in the private sector, their private pensions or their 401ks or IRAs. So
Right.
I
And
think
there
it's
are
great.
things that we didn't even get to talk about today with maximizing your pension, things that have to do with how you carry your group life insurance into retirement, that if you've
Oh,
got questions about that,
sure.
they should reach out.
All right. Well, great show today, Barb.
Thanks,
Fantastic
Tony.
information. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll be talking more about this and some of those other things on future shows.
Oh, yes. Oh,
But
yes.
Barb, great show today. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. That does it for this episode of Anchor Your Retirement with our host, Barbara Gulin.
We'll see you soon.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to Anchor Your Retirement. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound retirement plan. For more information, please contact Barb Gulin at Safe Harbor Financial Planning Group. Call 913-553-6222 or visit them online at anchoryourretirement.com.
Advisory services are offered through Safe Harbor Financial Planning Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Kansas. All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.